Hello viewers, you're welcome to this lecture on aquaculture. Now what is aquaculture? Basically, aquaculture refers to the breeding, the rearing and harvesting of fish and other aquatic organisms. It involves the breeding. Breeding means basically fertilizing the eggs and also producing fingerlings for sales. The rearing means the growing of the fish, and the harvesting, basically when the fish are matured, they are now harvested for sales. Aquaculture is one of the most lucrative businesses in Nigeria because the demand for fish protein is very high, and the supply of fish from the natural environment is actually not sufficient enough to meet the protein needs, and as a result, many have gone into aquaculture to help to augment the lapses of fishing in the natural environment. So in the course of our discussion, we will look at the various types of fish pond, and we'll also look at their advantages and the disadvantages. In fact, the process of the breeding, the rearing, and the harvesting of fish. Catfish farming is one of the most lucrative businesses anyone can start and make a lot of money. Currently in Nigeria, especially in this year 2024, the smallest table-sized catfish is now being sold as high as 2,500 naira, and bigger ones are sold much higher, as much as 8,000 to 20,000 naira, depending on the size. The types of catfishes that are currently cultured in Nigeria and being sold are mainly Clarias garapenus, heterobranchus species, and the hybrid of Clarias garapenus and heterobranchus species, which is Heteroclaria species. Other fish species that are cultured in Nigeria include Oreochremus niloticus, a species of tilapia, and Oreochremus aureus, which is an ornamental species of tilapia. If you decide to start a fish farm anytime, one of the major pieces of equipment you will need to raise a fish is a fish pond. Now, what is a fish pond? A fish pond is a place where fish are kept and raised for personal consumption or for commercial purposes. A fish pond can also be a controlled pond, artificial lake, or a reservoir that is stocked with fish and is used in aquaculture for fish farming, or is used for recreational fishing or ornamental purposes. Now I want to look at the types of fish ponds that are used for fish farming. There are different types of fish ponds. About 7 of them will be discussed in this video. And the types of fish ponds include the earthen pond, the concrete pond, the semi-concrete or semi-earthen pond, the tarpaulin pond, the plastic pond, the fiberglass pond, and then the 7th one is the cage system pond. Now we want to look at the different types of fish ponds. First is the earthen pond. What is an earthen pond? An earthen pond is a near natural habitat for fishes like a river or a stream. Although it is constructed to suit the design of the fish farmer, it is mostly constructed in slopey or waterlogged areas to accommodate the fish and give them a natural feel when they are being raised. An earthen pond is an artificial dam or a reservoir constructed by digging a hole that should be at least 1.5 meters deep. Now, what are the factors you'll consider before constructing an earthen pond? Before constructing an earthen pond, there are 2 crucial factors you need to consider. One of them is the location of the land. The first thing to consider before deciding to dig an earthen pond is the location and the choice of land that will be raised, that will be used. One major key factor in choosing land is that it must be in a place where there is natural water. Then the second factor is soil type, and that factor is very important in building fish ponds because the soil type determines the permeability of the soil, and on the other hand, the water retention capacity of the soil. The best type of soil for the earthen pond is one that can hold water very well. This can be clay soil or sandy clay soil. The earthen pond has some disadvantages and advantages. First, let's look at the advantages of the earthen pond. The first advantage of the earthen pond is that it is the most near natural type of pond, good for raising fish. 2. Fish tend to eat natural food like worms compared to other types of ponds. Then 3. Fish grow faster in an earthen pond. 4. It has a low maintenance cost. And 5. It is easy to manage the water system in the earthen pond. Then 6. One important thing about an earthen pond is you don't need to own your land or construct it yourself to start fishing. You can rent a place and put your fish. Disadvantages of the earthen pond include the following. 1. It is very risky to control if there is flood. It requires more space to build an earthen pond. It is difficult to know when there is an outbreak of diseases and more difficult to control. Then 4th, it is difficult to sort in an earthen pond, which makes it easy for fish to eat each other, which is cannibalism. So as far as it has advantages, it also has some disadvantages. The second type of fish pond we want to look at is the concrete pond. The concrete pond is very common for farmers to raise the fish, especially catfish. The concrete pond uses blocks, sand, and cement to build a habitat for you to raise a fish. Constructing concrete ponds requires the help of experts compared to the other types of ponds. Now let us consider the factors to consider before constructing a concrete pond. The first factor is location. A concrete pond can be built anywhere, even in your backyard. Then secondly, the drainage system. This is the second factor that's crucial to construction of concrete pond. A good drainage system where you will be disposing of wastewater should be a part of the planning process when you want to build a concrete pond. Then the third factor is cost. Starting up a concrete pond is the most expensive among all other types of ponds. You need to look at your pocket before choosing the concrete pond. Now we want to look at the advantages and disadvantages of concrete pond. Now the advantages. 1. It can be constructed on any land. Then 2. A concrete pond is better to manage for younger fish like fingerlings and the juveniles. Then 3. It is easy to notice fish diseases and also control the diseases. And 4. A concrete pond cannot be affected by flood unlike the earthen pond. Then 5. The water system can easily be managed. And 6. It lasts longer than other types of ponds if managed well. Now the disadvantages. The disadvantages of a concrete pond are: 1. It is expensive to construct. 2. For you to successfully run a catfish farm, it requires a large amount of water to run a concrete pond. And 3. If you don't have where to dispose the water waste can become a nuisance in the environment. Then 4. The maintenance cost is very expensive. The third type of fish pond is a semi-concrete or semi-earthen pond. Now, what is a semi-concrete or semi-earthen pond? Just as the name implies, a semi-concrete or semi-earthen pond is a type of fish pond that blends a concrete pond with an earthen pond. The fringes or walls of the semi-concrete ponds or semi-earthen ponds are built with concrete, while the bottoms are not cast with concrete, so it's just natural soil at the bottom. The bottoms are mostly muddy or natural. These ponds are usually built in the same or similar habitats with the earthen ponds. The walls are built with concrete to prevent collapse due to erosion and to prevent flooding. Now let us look at the factors to consider before constructing a semi-concrete or semi-earthen pond. Before choosing to construct a semi-concrete pond, there are two crucial factors you need to consider. The first factor is location of the land. The land must be similar to that of the land that's required for earthen pond, and it should be suitable for that purpose, especially it should be in a naturally swampy environment. Then the second factor is soil type. Like the earthen pond, the best type of soil for semi-concrete pond is the type of soil. The soil must be clay soil or sandy clay soil. The third factor is cost. Semi-concrete pond is more expensive to construct than an earthen pond, but less expensive than a concrete pond. Now let's look at the advantages and disadvantages of semi-concrete or semi-earthen pond. Now the advantages. The advantages include: 1, it prevents erosion of the pond. Then 2, unlike an earthen pond, a semi-concrete pond cannot be affected by flood. And 3, it lasts longer than the earthen pond if managed well. The disadvantages include: it is expensive to construct. It is difficult to know when there is an outbreak of disease, and it's difficult to control the diseases. Then 3rd, it is difficult to sort in an earthen pond, which makes it easy for fish to eat each other. That's the fish now embark or carry out cannibalism. The 4th type of pond we want to look at is the Tapine Pond. And this type of fish pond is the next most common after earthen, concrete or plastic ponds. It can be constructed with either wood or galvanized pipes and then covered with a tarpaulin. Tapine pond comes in different sizes and colors. One of the advantages of Tapine pond over other types of ponds is that it is easy to set up. Now, what are the factors you should consider before constructing a Tapine pond? Factors to consider before setting up a Tapine pond include: 1, space. Although it is not a serious factor, you need to make sure that where you want to put your Tapine pond does not have obstacles and other things that could cause a tear on the tarpaulin. Then the second factor is cost. If you want to fish on a large scale, it is advisable not to use a Tapine pond, because in the Tapine pond there is possibility of the tarpaulin to get damaged, and it could also result in some losses. That's the third factor is quality, and it is very advisable that the quality of the tarpaulin to be used should be taken into consideration. If not, if it bursts, it causes a lot of losses. Now let's look at advantages and disadvantages of the Tapine pond. Advantages. The first advantage is that it is cost effective compared to concrete pond. Then secondly, it is easy to set up. Then third, Tapine ponds are easily movable. Then fourth, Tapine ponds do not require a lot of space. Now the disadvantages. The first disadvantage is that it can easily tear. The tarpaulin can easily tear. Then second, because of its flexibility, heavy wind, rain, flood can likely destroy the pond. Then third, tarpaulin ponds can be disassembled and stolen easily. Thieves can easily steal the pond along with the fish, especially in an unfenced environment. Now I want to look at the fifth type of pond, which is called the plastic or rubber pond. The plastic or rubber ponds, like the tarpaulin ponds, are very essential in fish farming. This type of pond basically make use of plastics, and basically even GP tanks or water reservoirs can be used for these purposes. This type of pond is common for beginners of fish farming. One of the benefits of the plastic pond, just like the tarpaulin pond, is that it is easy to set up. One amazing thing about the plastic pond is that you can turn the old overhead tank into ponds that can be used to raise fish. Now let us look at the factors to consider before buying a plastic pond. The first is space. That's a very important factor. You can set up a plastic pond anywhere. You only require a small space to put your plastic. Then, second factor, quantity. When you're just starting fish farming and you want to use a plastic pond, which is advisable, the number of ponds you will buy should be considered depending on the number of fish you want to raise there and the cost. Sometimes, if you don't have enough money, you may not be able to carry out fish farming on a plastic pond. Then we want to look at the advantages and disadvantages of the plastic pond. The first one to look at is the advantage. One of the advantages of the plastic pond is that it is easily movable. The second advantage is that they are good for hatchling and raising fingerlings or juveniles. Then the third advantage, they can be used to raise catfish indoors. The fourth, they are cost effective. Then fifth, plastic ponds are easy to maintain. And sixth advantage, plastic ponds do not have any economic effect on the environment. Now I want to look at the disadvantages of plastic ponds. The first disadvantage is that if you are raising a large number of fish, you will spend more money to buy more number of plastic ponds to raise the fish. So it will affect the cost of production. Then the second factor, if the plastics are put in an open space, too much sun can affect the durability of the plastics. Now I want to look at the sixth type of pond, and that's the fiberglass tanks. This type of fish pond is not commonly used to raise catfish. Fiberglass tanks are transparent tanks used under a controlled temperature, most times indoors, before they are transferred to an open space. What are the advantages and disadvantages? Now I want to look at advantages. Advantages of fiberglass tanks include: 1, they are easy to set up; 2, they are movable; and then the third is that using a fiberglass tank to raise fish, you can easily manage the activities of the fish because it is transparent. Then the disadvantages of the fiberglass tanks is that it can be easily damaged. Then secondly, fiberglass can be expensive to purchase depending on your location. Then third, you need to employ the services of experts to install a fiberglass tank, and it's very expensive. Then we want to look at the seventh type of fish pond, and that's the cage or pen pond. The other type of fish pond is the cage or pen pond. This type of pond is always constructed inside fresh water. Cage tanks are always constructed in the middle of oceans and large quantities of water. They are held and surrounded by pegs, and they have buoyant floaters that help to keep them afloat. Now, what are the advantages and disadvantages of the cage or pen tanks? Advantages. Now, the advantages are: 1, fish tend to eat natural food as they are raised in the oceans or even in the freshwater environment, their natural habitat. Now, the second advantage is that you can stock as many as the number of fish you want. Then, third, fish raised in this type of pond tends to grow faster. Now, what are the disadvantages of cage or pen tanks? The disadvantages are: water pollution can happen, which can make you to lose your fish. Then second, poaching or stealing can occur in this type of pond. Then third, it requires tight security for you to succeed in raising fish with this type of pond. Aquaculture doesn't only involve the rearing of fish for consumption, it also involves the rearing of ornamental fishes like Oreochremus aureus, and then the rearing of fish in aquaria, which are used for ornamental purposes in homes and even in some other establishments. So aquaculture also involves the rearing of other organisms such as the crocodiles, the turtles, and even some mollusks and even algae and other plants. Now you've seen the process of fish farming and the different types of fish ponds and the process of aquaculture. So what are you going to do with this knowledge? Will you start off a business in aquaculture and make some profit, especially in this period when the economy is very harsh? Think about going into aquaculture and you will not regret going into it. Thanks for watching this video, and keep watching more of my videos from my YouTube and TikTok channels. I am Dr. Gijo Harry.